Welcome to Infinity Streaming. This is Lyceride, your stream technician. Today we have a video on how to create your own custom OBS Stinger transitions using two free tools, Blender and FFmpeg. The result today is going to look like this. So let's get started. Just a quick update. I made this video because a lot of the tutorials I found on making a Stinger with OBS were using an outdated technology, QuickTime. As much as I love QuickTime, it's really outdated, and WebM files are a lot smaller and work a lot better in my opinion. All right, once you're in Blender, you need to set a few options to configure it for our OBS Stinger transition. First thing we need to do is under Film, you want to set transparent backgrounds. Then you also want to configure your resolution. It's currently set to 1080p, so if that's the resolution of your OBS, that's great to go. And also set your frame rate. For your output, you're going to want the file format to be PNG with an RGBA. And just set your output folder. Okay, now that we have all the settings set, we're going to render out a scene to be our Stinger. If you know how to use Blender, you can go ahead and skip this section. Use the time index down in the description to skip to how to render it out with FFmpeg. And if you don't know how to use Blender, we're just going to be building out a simple scene here really quick. This isn't really a full tutorial on how to use Blender. If you want to learn how to use Blender, I highly recommend Blender Guru for beginners. So go ahead and check him out. You can click the little info button up in the top right corner of the video. So let's just build out a simple scene right now. So let's delete the cube and we're going to add in an icosphere mesh. We're going to set the divisions down to 1, which will give us a D20 dice, which is what we are building. All right, so now that we have our UV sphere, we're going to draw a texture onto it. So we're going to go over to UV edit. We've already got our UV map. So we're going to export that map. We're going to open it up in GIMP to draw our D12 dice. To export the UV map, go to the UV menu, hit export UV layout. We're just going to save this as icosphere. Click export. Now over in GIMP, we're going to open the UV layout. There it is. So now we want to draw our D12 dice texture onto this. I'm going to just use one I found online. So I just headed over to Google, found some nice layouts. This is the one I really liked. So we're going to download that and use that as our texture. We're going to take that texture from the internet. We're going to drop it on. Now you can see this is not positioned correctly. So let's go ahead and scale it down first. Then let's rotate it. Let's rotate it 90 degrees. That's behind the UV map so we can see what we're doing. Let's position this. Scale it out. All right, so we can see that it's not lining up with our UV layout. Now we can fix our UV layout in Blender, but we're just going to do it right here. We're going to grab the layer and we're going to transform it by flipping it horizontally. You can see that almost lines up perfectly. Maybe a little bit of adjustments. Now that we have this laid out nicely, we're going to turn off the UV map and export that to a nice safe location. And go back over to Blender. Back in Blender, we're going to open up that image and bring it onto the UV map. We're just going to tweak this a little bit and bring the UV project so it lines up nicely. Once we have the UV map lined up, let's go ahead and go over to shading. add a new material to this. We're going to add in a texture image. We're going to select our icosphere image. And there you can see. Nice laid out D12. We got a few little tweaks we can make. So let's actually just go over to texture paint and fix those up really quick. We're going to use the smudge tool. So once you're done with that, you've got yourself a nice, beautiful D20. So let's just tweak the shader a little bit to give it a nice shine to it. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is we want to set the path for it. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to move our camera. You have your camera in position. We're going to grab a curve, make a path. Turn off our icosphere for a minute. Okay, once you have your path laid out, we're going to make the icosphere follow it. We're going to add an object constraint, follow path. So once we have the follow path, we're going to select our target as the path we just created. We're going to hit follow curve and fix position. And you can see as we go along the offset, bounces. So let's scale this down a little bit, make it look more normal. All right. So the next thing, now that we have it following the path, is we want to set up how long we want our stinger to be. So at 60 frames a second, let's do 3 seconds, so 180. Then at frame 1, we're going to add in a keyframe. And then at frame 180, we're going to move it all the way to the end and add another keyframe. And you can see, so now it's following the path. Now let's add some rotation in. Okay, now we're just going to animate the dice by adding some rotation to it. And then we should have our scene set up. Okay, now that we have our animation done, you're going to want to render this out and then convert it into a WebM file. So to do that, if you have all your settings set up like we showed in the beginning, you're going to want to hit render animation. It will take a little while to render out. And once it's done, we will be back and show you how to use FFmpeg to create a WebM file. Okay, once you have FFmpeg installed, you're going to want to go to your folder where you have out your rendered image sequence. You're going to want to open up a command line terminal. There, you can do that typing CMD in your search bar. You're going to want to CD over to this folder. Then you're going to want to use this command. All right, so a few things about this command. The 60 here is your frame rate. So if you used a different frame rate, put your frame rate there. If you want to change the scaling, you can change it here. We're just going to leave it the same. All right, the 04d.png is our input. This means that it's going to take 4 numbers .png and input that file. So it's going to match all our input files. Then it's going to pipe it out into d12stinger.webm. So let's run that. Okay, once it hits the final frame and is done rendering, you should have an output file that's your stinger. So let's open that up and take a look at it. And there's your stinger. So there you have it. How to render a stinger transition for OBS with Blender and FFmpeg. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you need help, be sure to check out our Discord, link in the description below. The FFmpeg command is also in the description below, so if you need that, it's down there for you to copy and paste. And remember, be awesome, keep on streaming.